Hey, it's BT with Tales from a Gemini. My guest today is Arielle Isaac Norman. She goes by Degenderless on Instagram. And man, this was an eye-opening podcast. I wanted her on because she talks about the different kind of sexual, labels, out there. You know, she's lesbian, but she's in a polyamorous relationship. I knew nothing about stuff like that. And she was educating me, but in a fun way, the way comics talk. She's also a very funny comedian. And I just love this. I did something different for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed the way I did. So enjoy my new friend, Arielle Isaac Norman. Here we go. I am really, really, really looking forward to this, Wyatt. Seriously. I'm going to be learned today, but in a funny way. 1, 2, 3. Hey, it's BT with Tales from a Gemini, and I am so excited for this guest. You know, I always give props to guests who don't even know me, and I just come out and reach out and go, hey, want to be on a podcast and let's talk, and they accept. So there's a soft spot in my heart for that. And this one, I really want to talk to this guest because they're a comic, and they're all about the new sexual, I don't even know what to call it without wanting to offend. I mean, honestly, the pronoun game with the transgender and the binary, non-binary, and the polyamorous and all that. To be honest, I know nothing about that. It's like I woke up one day and was like, what? And so, the best way is to talk to somebody on a one-on-one, so you don't get, just vilified, like, what's wrong with you? And with the comic, I think it's gonna be even better. So my guest today, her Instagram, I love her Instagram. Instagram is called Degenderless. Her name is Arielle Isaac Norman, and I wanna welcome my guest. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, hey, thanks for getting all my names right. It's rare that we don't have to do a double take on that, so appreciate it.
I was looking at your videos, man, you are fucking fearless. You go, just being in the places you go to and you hit the subjects and I'm like, holy shit. Like it gets to me, I'm watching it going, how do you navigate what you talk about in the places that you talk about? I mean, you're in like bars. And the one that while I was watching one video you did, and it was a dude, you were talking about penis size, whatever. And remember, he was like something like, should I put it in your mouth? And you played it like you played with it. I think he said, like you said, KKK, but I don't think it was like that. But then you took it like that, and then you play along with it. He goes, maybe if I put it in your butt, something like put it in your butt. And I was like, oh my God. But you kept your cool, and you just kept jabbing at him. I was like, this one, you definitely are somebody I love. As a comic, I respect you even more. So how do you even do that? Where did you get that steel wheel that you have?
Yeah, you should see the stuff that doesn't make it to the internet, but the steel wheel, I mean, in terms of dealing with hecklers and crowd work kind of stuff, I started a show a long time ago in Austin at the Hideout Theater. I had a show where like 1 week of the month we would riff on topics. 1 week of the month it would be all crowd work. 1 week of the month I would do heckling aloud. And then 1 week of the month it was like director's cut jokes, like jokes you really shouldn't tell, whatever. And so I would just do that week after week. And now I have a show that I do twice a month in Austin and San Marcos, in Texas, and I've taken it on the road, but it's called Off Script, and it's a show where heckling is encouraged. And so I give out prizes to funny hecklers. So it's not just like, oh, everyone heckle us. I think when people do shows like that, it seems to be more mean-spirited and kind of unruly. But because people are trying to win prizes at my show, after every comic gets off stage, I give out a prize to whoever was their funniest heckler. It makes people, they're trying to kind of be funny. And I talked to the audience beforehand about like trying to contribute to the show. The way that some people, you're not really supposed to heckle at shows most of the time. But, people have that thing where like, I'm helping, like I want to, and so I'm like, do that at this show, do that. And so I've been doing this for years. And so I, a long time ago, realized that, because new comics are always afraid of hecklers and what that's going to be like. But the audience, number one, is on your side when you're the comic, just as a default, and you have the microphone, which gives you a lot of power. And then, some comics really go in for it where they just want to roast the guy. They want to just be mean and like win in that way. It's very masculine energy to try to like, I'm going to own you, But for me, it's more like you can just kind of let people hang themselves. They say the stupidest thing, especially if you're dumb enough, socially inappropriate enough, maybe you're drunk, whatever, to heckle. A lot of times you're going to wind up saying the stuff that like everyone's going to make fun of you anyway. It's like judo for me. I just let people, say these things and then we can have fun with what you're saying. And I find it's usually more effective to be pretty flirtatious with people rather than trying to be angry at them. You don't want to ever, as a comic, you never really want to get angry. You want to be funny. Don't get mad, get funny, And so, yeah, like for me, it just doesn't offend me. Men have been saying sexually inappropriate things to me my entire life.
No.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not like it's a shock. Oh my God, put a dick in my mouth. Like, it's not like I'm like taken aback by that. Like, it's hilarious that a man would say that. And to think that that's going to be a popular move in a crowd. Like, the people in the crowd are going to think he's a loser from the get go. So it's not hard. I would lose ground if I got mad, but instead it's like, oh, really? Like, you're going to talk about where you want to put your tiny little dick? Oh, okay. It's not hard to make fun of men and their stupid little penises. So, like, yeah, if you want to bring up your dumb little dick, like, let's just see how that goes for you.
Well, I mean, it's funny now, but I mean, I've been there and I've seen stuff like, especially when it comes to women, because I know how guys are, and there's different energies, but are you ever afraid that somebody takes it the wrong way and maybe they're waiting for you after the show, or maybe like, I mean, because there's always, you got to tread lightly. And I mean, I've had situations where I got in the parking lot like, all right, hope this guy's not waiting on me. I mean, and so I think about that as a woman, like, are you ever afraid that somebody maybe they'll follow you, or maybe they'll, after the show's over, they won't take it as the joke that it is that you think they would?
You mean in terms of me being physically afraid, or me being afraid that I'm going to get sexually assaulted?
Well, but physically afraid, because like sometimes, you think they know it's a joke and, hey man, we're just having a good time. But sometimes, it doesn't go out and it doesn't go their way. And some kind, men are, if they feel like they've been emasculated and they get that, they've been drinking. So has it ever gotten that far?
I mean, I'll say a few things about that. One is, oftentimes if I've had a tense interaction with someone, or like really made fun of them and got the crowd to, be against them or whatever, I oftentimes will go up to the person, or just if I think I've offended someone with my jokes or anything, I often will go up to someone if it's like a visible thing. If we had a real interaction, if it's a few hundred people, I can't be like, oh, look at all these offended faces. But if someone and I have had a particular interaction, I often will go up to them and say like, hey, like, I hope you had a good show, and I usually try to make it so that even with my hecklers that I'm kind of owning, they still get to have a good time. I recently had there was a couple who just wound up getting insanely transphobic in the middle of a show. And I was able to steer the ship and the audience was against them and thought they were great, thought they were mean spirited and whatever. And I was able to like kind of make fun of them, but then still allow them to keep their dignity and enjoy the rest of the show and not feel like, oh, we've been like, we've been made fun of and we have to leave. I've had hecklers after the show make out with me, both consensually and non. But
whoa.
like, in terms of
how can they non-consensually make out with you? How does that work?
Oh, literally grabbing my face. Like, it'll be like this one time there was a show in Houston, which is a very heckly town, but there was a show where I can't remember what this woman, it was just, we were having kind of a back and forth. She was quite drunk and she wanted to tell all these stories of her life. And so I was kind of like, I would let her do a little, and then I would make fun of her. But I was very making fun of her because I wasn't easy on her because she was drunk and she was being pretty ridiculous. But I would kind of let her go and then just like give it to her and whatever, and get the show back on track. And then I went up to some friends that I saw after the show. I didn't even see her there. And suddenly I turned and she was like, oh, it's you. And then she just grabbed the back of my head and like jammed me into to kiss her. Like, and it was something where it's like, I was seeing it happening, she's pulling me in, and it was not only like a non-consensual kiss, but it was like such a bad kiss. Such a sloppy, weird, that it's like I had the simultaneous impulse of like both pulling back from it and also like trying to make it a better kiss because I was embarrassed to be a part of such a bad kiss. I don't want people to see like, this isn't how I get anyway, but I also don't mind. I also had a heckler in Pensacola once who was also drunk and ridiculous. And I had gone up to her to talk to her after the show to kind of patch things up because I, made some fun of her after she heckled. And then she was trying to be mad at me for a minute or two of us talking. And then she was like, I just can't even be mad. You're just so beautiful. And I just want to kiss you, whatever. And I was like, we can make out. It was ridiculous. No, later in the night, it turned out she was married. And anyway, I don't know what that was, I didn't know any of that. I don't know what her and her husband's deal is. I don't know. She said she wanted to make out with me. So it's like but she was drunk. So technically that was, assault. I assaulted her because I was sober, I mean, I don't know. And then I'm assaulted so, but this does go to another point of your question. It's just the only people who have ever like confronted me, after a show have been women. And so I've never had a man like want to come up, and usually I think if the ones who've been emasculated get to the point where they don't think they're going to win with me, Right. But I've had some women actually offer to fight me for weird reasons. I was like somewhere in Colorado at a place that's closed now. There was a woman, and it was like, it didn't even make sense, but she had a cane and she wanted to take it outside, and I think it had something to do with me being gay, but I don't know. She was also, before the show, she prints out little pieces of paper that say like work on your parking, and she just puts it on cars that she feels like park badly downtown. So she's obviously got a personality issue.
Obviously.
But I remember like some other comics had to, because we were going to fight. I wish I could remember what it was about, but
were you going to were you going to throw hands? Were you going to throw hands?
I considered it. I mean, I was like, if you want to go outside, I mean, I don't know. I wish like I got to go back and like listen to one of my podcasts where I told that story, because, this was like a few years ago now. And I'm like, what? Why was she mad at me? But so I think that's one thing that as someone who is female, like men still have that thing of like, they're not really trying to fight me. That's against the rules. So I think if you're a male comic and you get into a thing, you get into that testosterone thing, you get into that rage thing, you get into that like hierarchical, y'all are always, who's where in the hierarchy, and and so, we gotta finish this. But that's one of the many reasons I don't transition. It's like, I'm not trying to be in y'all's little game. I don't want to be competitive. I don't like that kind of spirit. I'm a much more cooperative. And so that's what I mean. So in my heckling, it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes I do just have to make fun of someone, whatever. But usually I try to make it that I'm going to make fun of them, but I'm also going to allow them to keep their dignity, allow them a way of me being like, no, we don't all need to hate this guy. Like, this is fun. This is hilarious. Like, if this guy wants to embarrass himself, he can't, but yeah, it doesn't really lead to, at least it hasn't yet. It's never led to a man like truly being like angrily, like, I got to go beat this woman up. I mean, that would be, people, if anything, they wind up just trying to hit on me. And that's their, I think, way of trying to feel better about the interaction, is if they can flirt with me, you know what I mean? And I think men should try that with each other. If only you guys could just flirt a little and be like, all right, we don't have to be, angry at each other. We can be on each other's side. But y'all are so closed off to that because of your own homophobia. So you just have to beat each other up.
Well, men's way of doing that, the stopping the fight or something, or saying like a guy looks good, we're saying like, man, you work out pretty good. You work out, huh? Like, so what do you? I mean, that's our way of saying that and breaking the ice. You know what I mean? I don't know about homophobia, but that's our way of doing that. You know what I mean? That's what we say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were someone it was like offering, was like, well, I'm gonna go beat you up or whatever, you'd be like, oh yeah, I don't know, you look like you work out a lot, but I'm gonna skip this fight or something. Like, that might be a cute way, but. Yeah. So I don't know. I get away with a lot as a woman. So I'm going to keep riding this train.
Well, I just want you to be careful. I mean, honestly, I just want you to be careful because, I mean, to me, it's like you're still one of the, I mean, to me, I just feel like as a comic, we're all in this together. We're not, even though we're not, we all, to me, we're all in this together. I just hate for something. I just kind of cringe going, man, I hope everything works out for her when it comes to that, because when it comes to heckling, yeah, it's cool. But sometimes I know how guys can be sometimes. That's why I ask. I mean, guy to guy, yeah, I get it, man. If they want to do that to me, okay, whatever. But when it's a woman, it's like, oh, come on. You know what I mean? I just feel for you.
Again, at least so far, I mean, men don't tend to have the instinct to be like, let me go beat up a woman. And ultimately, they see me as a woman. Even when my hair has been very short, people are still seeing me as female. And so there is that code of, you're not going to go try to beat this female up. I mean, if I ever needed to have some, dudes come with me to my car, I would do that. If I ever felt unsafe, I would say, like, hey, friends of mine, can you just walk me to my car? But, I've never felt an instinct like that. I mean, I've walked the world in, foreign countries at 3 a.m. and whatever. And I've never felt a sense of unsafety. There's something kind of nice about being a somewhat masculine lesbian. It's like from behind, I look like a guy to a lot of people. I walk like a guy. I have that kind of energy. So I don't get messed with at night very much at all. And I carry myself with the confidence of a man. And so I don't get messed with like that. But at the end of the day, a man would feel even more emasculated trying to beat me up, because I know it's not a fair fight. So.
Well, I was gonna ask, do you realize, I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's, do you like, you kind of exude, have you heard this before, kind of a sexual energy when you get on stage? I mean, have you heard that before?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to sound like I was.
No, it's something I don't think I ever thought about it in the beginning or like set about to do that, but it's something that I think has evolved and developed, especially as I've done my heckling show. I'm very flirtatious with the heckling show. And I also have a show called Backyard Sluts. That's a very flirtatious show. And it's an energy I really enjoy. And I think as an androgynous gender fluid person, it's where I like to be. I think there's been cultures where like the people like me in that kind of third gender space, tend to be these kind of sexually amorphous people. And there's something hot. It's the same way, we fetishize lesbians in the culture and everyone's kind of turned on by that. And so it's like, I kind of consciously now allow myself to be in a slightly fetishized place. Like that's what people do with lesbians anyway. And androgynous ones and men and women are both like, it doesn't matter what their sexuality is. Men and women tend to be attracted to me, even if they tend to only be attracted to men. And so it's like, it's just kind of a natural thing for me to just be a little bit flirtatious with everyone as a comic persona.
Go back to when you said something about the fetish thing. What was that again? You said, you were talking, so I didn't want to interrupt you, but you said fetishize. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Oh, people fetishize lesbians. I mean, that's just, it's, still, even with all of the options, the number one search term is a porn search term is still lesbians. It's just people like that. There's something we all, and me included, really like about women together. And
is it Asians first or lesbians first? Which one is it?
No, lesbians first. It's lesbians first, man. Now, Asian lesbians may be very popular, but it's like, yeah, Pornhub came out with all those results. Years, I remember it was like in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. Pornhub was like, well, let's show everyone what everyone watches on porn. And I was surprised. I was like, damn, I'm kind of honored, like everybody has all these options, but lesbianism is still going strong as the number one search term. So
I don't know why, but
there's not even good lesbian porn.
Yeah,
and most lesbian porn is garbage, and yet still people are watching that.
You know what I think it's best? Amateur lesbian porn, because that way it's not fake. It's more real. It's so I like that on straight porn. I like the fact that no one. Yeah. I'm walking on the street and I
want people who are into each other.
So wait, say again.
Right. Yeah, I want people to be into each other. I don't like porn when it's women faking desire and faking pleasure. I don't care for that. But genuine pleasure and desire is what, it turns me on. So for sure. But yeah, but we got to educate you about all these terms. Let's not get lost in my life story.
I mean, I like to get to know you. I mean, I was, I don't want to just jump into it and all of a sudden, like, just leave it kind of like professional. I like to, but I was like, yeah, but I like the amateur, just the fact of knowing, like, I can walk through Walmart going, I know her. That's like Chocolate 69. You know what I mean? Somebody, the fact that you might have a connection there, like you could see them on this level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's why. So, okay. So let's go back to educating me. Now, I was watching your videos and you said, in your words exactly, in one of your clips, you said, you think of yourself as a dude. In what way? In what way?
In a lot of ways. I think of myself as a dude. I mean, for one, I date women, and my attraction to women is there's a lot of the visual and physical kind of stuff. Like there are some women, some lesbian types who seem, you see like this is a stereotype, but like the hot long hair will be with kind of an uglier short hair. And now that's not, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of, but there's a lot of that. Well, and I'm the kind where I'm like, yeah, I like, I tend to prefer the long hair ones, although my girlfriend has cut her hair very short and I'm also attracted to that, whatever, I've dated a range of that, but like, but I want hips and ass and boobs. And so there's this kind of dude likeness, just to it's the sexuality of that. Also just the way my brain works in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying like there's a male brain, there's female, but there are some kind of tendencies, when it comes to raising your hand or interrupting with talking. Like I have no problem, those studies that show that like women in college classes like barely ever raise their hand and, aren't comfortable in it. Like I'm very comfortable interrupting. I'm very, I'm going to hold the floor. I mean, there's some ways I'm very stereotypically feminine where I'm horrible at parallel parking. But I don't really like manipulating shapes. My spatial reasoning is shit. But the way I joke around with guys, it just feels I feel much more natural and comfortable joking around with dudes than with women. Sometimes, I have that same kind of wariness that a lot of guys have when you're with women. Like, are they going to be a little offended? What all can we say? Whereas when you're hanging out with dudes, like, it's just very comfortable to be like, we're going to kind of say anything we want and go there. I mean, it's hard to explain all of the different ways. I also have had, dysphoria around my body. It's like still really a journey to be okay with my boobs, for instance, or that my butt, like there's a part of me that would like to take testosterone, that would like to get top surgery. I want to look like a Ken doll in some way, but my thing is like, but I'm into lesbians, and what lesbians are into is boobs, like they want me to be a woman. They want me to be female. And so, I joke around about that. Oh, I'm really a dude in a chick's body, but I'm fine with that because being a lesbian is so hot. Why would I want to try? If God's plan for me was girl on girl, then who am I to question the divine will of our creator? Right. And so, but there are people who their dysphoria is way worse than mine. Yeah. And so they really feel strongly like they want to do that, and they give up relationships and they, whatever, and, if they need to. But for me, I think because I'm so naturally androgynous, it allows me to live in a place where I can be okay with a little bit of dysphoria, and the trade-offs are just in favor of me, at least for now, and in favor of me staying in this, regularly female body, because I'm 5'8", which is as androgynous as possible. I have this jawline. My boobs aren't that big. If they were bigger, I probably already would have cut them off, at least had a reduction, because you can't really hide that. There's something about it, and like that kind of body, it would bum me out. But for me, like with my frame, it's just important for me to stay relatively thin. Mm-hmm. And then I've been putting on some muscle lately.
Oh, look at you.
Pitiful, but whatever. But I've been kickboxing and whatnot.
Yes.
And so that's my just
getting ready for those hecklers.
Before I would ever. Well, it's the same way that like before I ever want to turn to Western medicine for anything else, whether kind of anxiety, insomnia. Although I'm about to turn to Western medicine for that, but you try to go like, let me drink more water. Let me stop drinking alcohol. Let me drink tea instead of coffee. Let me work out. Let me do all of the meditate, do all these things that I can, because I would prefer not to be sucking pharmaceutical companies' dicks for the rest of my life or whatever. Yes. And so it's the same way to me, like, if you can figure out how to handle dysphoria, if you can figure out how to change, there's so many ways you can work on changing your body. Mm-hmm. Short of taking a knife to it, taking pills, whatever, that you're going to have to take for the rest of your life, or it's going to be a weird back and forth if you don't. And I still hold out the possibility of having a child and breastfeeding and all that kind of stuff. And so even though it's like, it's always felt wild to me, like the idea that I would carry a child does seem like incongruous to me. Like it would be wild. But as a comedian too, I'm like, yeah, but it would be hilarious if I had a baby. Like the wrongness of it kind of appeals to me. I'm like, that would be so funny. Yeah. Like just to have like a dude, having a baby, like all the bits that I would write about it. Like Ali Wong's done a pretty great job. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I bet I would have some more bits that I could write about it. So
that's like, another 15 minutes.
All these cost benefit analyses about whether to medicalize when you are gender nonconforming, have gender dysphoria, whatever. There's so much going on there. And so for me, I'm just like, I always want to encourage people like, hey, see if you can do more push-ups, or whatever, before you start going like, let me just take what is kind of a quick fix Western American mindset of like, yeah, let's just put kids on these tracks, whether you're kids or you're adult or whatever, but like, let's put them on this track to be signing up for this medical pathway for the rest of your life. Like, well, let's see if there are other options. Because for a lot of people, you're able to figure out other options. But again, I'm very lucky as someone in my gender situation that I am 5'8", that I have smaller boobs, that I have this jawline. People have been stirring me, when I was 4 or 5, someone first asked, are you a boy or a girl? Like, so I'm just naturally androgynous. And that helps me to live in the world in a way where I'm not, if I were constantly being, oh, this is a lady, oh, this is a chick, then I think it would be harder for me to not medicalize myself. But because people are always kind of seeing me as both a dude and a chick in various ways, then it's easier for me to just kind of play around with the fluidity of it.
Now, were you always comfortable, like, in your own skin growing up, or when did you finally realize that maybe you were different from everybody else in the way you thought or whatever?
Oh, well, I knew I was different from everybody else very young because, again, I was being asked, are you a boy or a girl? Not too often, but, enough that it was like, and, I remember the first time that happened, I was like, a girl, and then I knew that I was this, people kept using the word tomboy, some people positively, some people negatively. And so I was that was constantly thrown at me that I was a tomboy. And so I knew I was different. And then I knew that I was attracted to women pretty early. And I knew even way before puberty or anything, I knew that there was something different. So when the other girls when a woman would start to change in front and be like, oh, we're all girls here, there was always something in my brain where I was like, yeah, but I'm, and now, later I would say, oh, it was like, oh, what I wasn't saying was, yeah, but I'm gay. But what's also there is like, what it was more of like yeah, but I'm not, like, yeah, but I'm a dude. Yeah, but I'm different, And I think that's the more true thing. There's always been a huge amount of overlap between sexuality and gender. And we're only kind of like really looking into that now. Yeah.
Okay, so what age was it? You said early, but what age was it? Because what I'm getting at is, I was going to ask you about what you thought about that Don't Say Gay bill in Florida with Ron DeSantis. He goes from K through, I think, 3 or K through 5 maybe, where you don't talk about gender. And so what did you think of that? And when did you when did you know that you were actually lesbian? Or if you even knew the term?
Yeah, this is all, they were not having language for it when I was younger. And even now, I don't think we've like figured it out now. And now we know what to tell kids and they could figure it out if we just give them a little pamphlet. We don't know. We're still making shit up. Everyone's using language differently. And so it was an evolving of figuring things out. I'm still figuring things out about how I want to put things or what's fluid versus what is solid in me. So this is such an evolutionary, process. It's such an ongoing organic process of figuring things out and figuring out whether things are figure outable. So I always, from the time I was little, I was different. And I wish someone had offered me the opportunity to cut my hair short when I was little. And that's about what I wish. I wish that things hadn't been so rigid in gender ways. They were getting less so. We go up and down with a lot of that stuff. But there were, at church especially, I had to wear tights and a dress or skirt or whatever. Like there was a lot of that stuff until I got to college. I still had to, in Mormon context, as I was raised Mormon, I still had to wear, they were strict about women can't wear pants on Sundays, and at church dances and things. So I wish that I had been able to wear pants, but I don't wish that I had been able to transition so that I could wear pants. I wish that everyone had been allowed to wear whatever they wanted to. I wish that someone had suggested, hey, you could just cut your hair short. You don't know what to do with your hair. You hate it. You play it. Like now I'm learning, this is the longest it's been since I was, 20. And it's been a boy haircut for a long time, but like, if you quote unquote boy haircut, haircut marketed to men. And now I don't know if you can even see, but it's like shaved on the sides and whatever. So it's kind of like this hybrid thing. Thanks. But as a kid, it would have helped me so much if I could have had some options like that. If I had been able to be more free. And there were always like, I was just gravitating toward boys' toys and things like that. So there was a lot of stuff where it's like, I just wish everyone had been looser about, hey, girls can do all of these other things. They might, I was frustrated as a 5-year-old because all the other girls at both church and school, when they were given choices about crafts, girls were only doing things in pink and purple with only hearts and stars, whereas boys had every other color, had every shape, had every interest. And the girls were just sitting there. It was like the emperor's not wearing any clothes. I'm like, who told these girls the only colors that you're allowed to like are pink and purple? They acted like this was just this organic thing. And I mean, it's weird because I have a niece now and I watch some of it going like, what does it, this is wild. But they were like, it was so rigid. It was like, we're only going to make hearts and stars in pink and purple. And as a 5-year-old, I was like monologizing to my mom one day, just being like, this is retarded. I mean, I don't know what words I used, but like,
go ahead. Yeah.
But I just mean as a 5-year-old, I don't know, who knows what I said, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like this, people are full of shit, And so I had a sense from a young age that I'm like, I just think the girls are faking some of this, or I'm not like that. And I want everybody to have access to the full spectrum of humanity, whether most women gravitate toward this and most men or boys, gravitate toward this, but some girls are going to cross over and some boys are going to cross over in various ways. So I think that's the big sense. When it comes to the Florida bill, which I think is called HP 1557 or something like that. I don't know if that might be a printer, but because I don't want to call things the name that the opposition has nicknamed them, or the thing that the propagandists, you know what I mean? Like, remember, No Child Left Behind was about the most let's leave all children behind bill ever. So I mean, like that marketing's bullshit, the Patriot Act. And now when we start calling things Obamacare, calling things Don't Say Gay, like all of these things, like we should be calling them what they are, because Don't Say Gay is not what that law is. Now, I think number one, the law is written extremely vaguely, and I'm not sure whether I'm always wary of the government legislating anything, because our government's not great at things and people do things to get reelected and it's whatever. Yes. But I don't want school teachers actively teaching children, it's K through 3rd grade. So 8-year-olds and below. I don't think they need to be teaching kids about sexuality and gender. Right. Now, if there's a gay teacher, I think that they should be allowed to say my husband, my wife, my girlfriend, whatever, just the way a straight person could. I remember that growing up, it was just not done because people were so homophobic, whatever, but it was as if a gay person mentioning their husband, that was sexual. Whereas if a straight woman mentions her husband, that was normal. You know what I mean? So some of that bullshit, but I think a lot of us have already moved on from a lot of that kind of homophobia. I think most people are not that concerned about, liberal propaganda getting to their kids in terms of sexuality anymore. I think that most people and what's going on with this bill is that they care more about the gender stuff. Because if you've ever seen one of these very sweet little kind of books or, programs, things on Instagram, whatever, there's a lot of this where they're just like very matter of factly like, hey kids, everybody has a gender identity. And your gender identity is a personal thing inside you that is immutable. And so you might have a penis and be a girl, or you might have a vagina and be a boy, or vice versa, or you might be non-binary, and people all have pronouns and you should respect whatever people's. Now, this is an ideology. These are people's, this is a made up human framework for very complicated things. So the idea that we're going to teach children younger than 8, and this happens in California, as far as I'm aware, like in some places. This is why Florida is responding to what's happening in California. I don't know that it was happening in Florida anywhere, but I don't think we do need to be teaching kids that everybody has a gender identity. We just made that up. We don't really know that that's the best way to put it. I don't think that I have a gender identity, for instance. I think the rest of y'all kind of seem to, most people kind of seem to have this strong sense. Actually, when I've asked audiences to clap, if it's about 50-50, how many people readily say like, I identify as a man or a woman. And I have a strong sense of like, I am a man or a woman. And we don't, to the best of our ability, it's like, it seems like there's something about your sexuality and the way that you want to live in society with its current gender roles and frameworks that gravitates certain dispositions toward masculine things or feminine things, and then other. I think there are so many different things that lead to people identifying as trans or as non-binary or as this, that, or the other. And we lump it all into some people are trans or some people are cis, some people are non-binary. And I think it's so much messier than that. So trying to teach kids, here's this simple thing. Some people are this, some people are that. Everyone has a gender identity. I don't believe in that. I don't know that that's necessarily true or true with a capital T anyway. And so I certainly don't think we need to be telling 8-year-olds that, if someone says their pronouns are this, then that means that they have a non-binary soul or whatever, I don't think we should be doing that. But I think the bill could be written much better to just be like, hey, we're not teaching kids about sexuality and gender, at least not until we get to health class in middle school. And then we can talk about the curriculum,
Well, yeah, I think sometimes I think there is an agenda with some people, and like you said, it's a political thing personally. But I think let them. I just remember growing up. I think it was 6th grade. I think when all the boys went in one room, all the girls went in one room, and you were like, I'm old school, so I remember seeing the old fashioned, like, this is the penis, like, I know what that is, and then they teach you this and that, and you'll get this feeling, and that's where the sperm comes out, like, oh, like not knowing really, like, oh, okay, that's what happens, that's old school. So I don't personally think they should. Like, let them be kids from K through 3. Just let them have fun. Let them play. Let them have recess. Let them whatever. Yeah. And then hit them with the heavy shit, But now that we're on the terms.
Well, we just don't all agree about how to talk about sexuality, much less gender, to kids. And so it's like, if we're going to be doing that in the schools, we all need to have a real come to Jesus together about what we're going to be telling them. What can we all agree on that we could tell them? Or what could a lot of us agree on, or anything? Because otherwise, we need to keep things to science at school. We don't need to be getting into the weeds of what is right or wrong, or who's, got a mythical gender identity that we should talk about. I don't mean to say mythical and that it's not true, but it's just we made up the concept of gender identity. It's not a scientific concept. We don't have any science for that. So that's just, it's something that until we have any better science, there's no point in telling that to kids. They're already going to be getting on fucking Tumblr or whatever anyway. Let them talk to their parents, let them, or to have a private conversation with your student counselor if you need to, but it shouldn't be part of the instruction.
But you think it's going to be an agenda, though? Because, I look at it almost equated to, the big thing now is critical race theory, which I think it's funny. I personally, I call that the truth, and Texas calls it, if it ain't white, it ain't right. And that's why I look at it. What is
critical race theory to you? Can you quickly define that? Yeah.
For me personally, I just think there's a truth that's coming out on what really happened in it. The conquerors get to write the history books, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the way I personally look at it. This is the way I look at it. So they write the history books, and it's always been that way, and it's been hammered into your head since day one. Like, you go into a black church, there's a picture of a white Jesus, and back in the day there was nobody white there, but that's what they believe. Okay, yeah. So it's so then I just think the truth starts coming out about, okay, the Native Americans, really black, or African, or whatever we want to call it, whatever. And, who discovered what, and who got the credit for what, and, how slavery really was. And if they didn't comply, they would get their heads cut off, so they had to kind of go along with the slave trade. So I just feel like it's a coming of reality based, and tell them what really happened in history. That's the way I look at it. And they're like, no, let's keep the lies the way they always were.
So I think this is the distinction, right? What I think most of us could agree on is that we should be teaching more history better, more accurate history, more thorough history. There's a lot of stuff we weren't, and critical thinking. We want critical thinking, and we want real history. But when you call it critical race theory, it's just the same as if you call it gender studies, then it's there's a few people in academia who came up with a thing, and now it's been filtered down through Tumblr and the Twitter and whatever. And now we've got this idea of what it is. And so some people could be teaching what they're calling CRT, and it look one way, and other people it looks another way. And the same thing with this gender stuff. Some people could just be saying, hey, look, everybody should be able at this point to dress however they want to, and love whoever they want to, and act however they want. And you should expect surprises. And some people are going to, want different pronouns, and some people are going to want to change it. And that's whatever. You could teach things in a kind of an objective, this is the reality way. And let's talk about how to think critically, instead of it being the critical race theory that people get upset about is when you start saying, you know what? Black people and white people need to go in separate groups, and white people shouldn't talk, and white people's tears are upsetting to black people. And so, and you should only listen to black voice, melanated voice, but they start getting into these realms of well, wait, what is this exactly? This isn't just teaching like what the Tuskegee experiment was. So everyone should know about Tuskegee,
Exactly.
but it doesn't mean that now what we don't want to get into, at least what I don't want to get into, I mean, for obvious reasons, but is that we start going, oh, let's bring back segregation. Let's Martin Luther King was wrong. No, actually, we should just be punishing Anglos forever for the sins of maybe their fathers, but also maybe very distant relatives who, most of us also came from poor farmers and we're all kinds of not that it's the same. And we need to talk critically about systemic racism. We need to talk critically about implicit associations and all kinds of implicit biases and things like that. We critically think, but once you label it like this gender studies kind of thing, this critical race theory thing, it's putting in particular theories from academia that actually most people don't agree on. And so that's what I think we're saying is like, it's this language comes into play. And so we don't actually want, if you just say critical race theory, like it could mean so many different things to so many people. And some of them we're very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, but I have your point, critical think, that's great. I really think it's great and all. And if you say it like that, and when with the we were just talking before, what you said before, but it's not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to somebody turning it the way they want it to be construed. You know what I mean? I just really think. I mean, it's like growing up. My me asking how old you are, by the way, Dia. How old are you?
35.
Oh, really?
I
thought you were like 23, 24. I swear to God I did. So, okay. So even though I do have some years on you.
23.
So even though I do have some years on you, it's like, I look at it like growing up the way we did. And it's like, it's almost like that Chris Rock joke, all you knew was Martin Luther King, and then there was so much more we did. So, and we always thought the flex was going to a white school. That's it. You go to white school, get better education. Not realizing, are they really going to tell your story? Are they really going to tell, in an objective way? I mean, so in a way, I hear you, and I think race makes people get rigid. Like if they hear race, they get rigid. So we say critical thinking. If somebody's going to read that and go, hey, they're still making us look bad, even when we relabel it this. So I just really think when it comes down to it, the truth is never going to be told if it's told by certain people. I'm a firm believer in that.
Well, but again, what I started with is saying we need to teach more history better. And so what we could do, instead of calling it critical race theory, is say, here are some things that need to be in the curriculum. When we teach American history, we need to hit all of these points because it was getting better when I was growing up. And there was some awareness of, especially in the higher level classes, there was some awareness of like, hey, in the past, we were really obfuscating how bad some of the stuff was. Now slavery was like, seen as this disgusting thing that had happened, you know what I mean? And it was, when I was growing up, at least it was like, and then we talked about Jim Crow. It wasn't like we didn't talk about that stuff at all. It wasn't like we were glossing it over or anything. I mean, we went into it. We were like, it was like Holocaust, Black slavery. We were talking about those things in my classes. Like this was disgusting, deplorable.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but where did you grow up, by the way? Where'd you grow up?
In Houston.
Oh, you grew up in Houston. Okay,
Houston,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just checking.
So I think, so I've certainly learned a lot of things in history classes, that we didn't learn in history classes since then. But also we had this problem. I don't know about you. Every year in American history, because it was like we would cycle every 3 years, right? It would be world history, Texas history, world history, or U.S. history. Every time we would in U.S. history, we would make it till about World War II, and then like the year would be over. It was May, and we were like, okay, whoops, we didn't finish the textbook. There were chapters in the textbook that were going to cover other stuff, but we never got past World War II. I swear to God, it was like, and it does make you look back now, going, was that on purpose? They didn't want to talk about Vietnam. They didn't want to talk about the civil rights era. They didn't want to talk about how bad things were for so long.
Yeah. And class is over, like summer break. What about this? Don't worry about it.
You'll watch some movies later. I mean, it was so yes, I think we could talk about, instead of talking about critical race theory, because again, it's like, that's kind of a weird, I don't know, Marxist ideology or something, but I've heard some real criticisms of it, but different people use that term different ways. Right. But I think what we could do is say, here's some things that need to be in the curriculum when we teach U.S. history. And by the time that kids are in 8th grade or 11th grade, whichever it is, we're going to teach them about Tuskegee. We're going to teach them about all the times that Black wealth has been, stolen and devastated so that they couldn't figure out how to build, you know what I mean? Like there are things we could add to the curriculum and say, you don't get to stop at 1942 and just go up, whoops, it's May. You don't get to do that. You have to teach kids these things. We could do that. I think that's something you could probably get everybody to agree on actually. But if we call it critical race theory and then people are listening to podcasts where they're saying, well, critical race theory teaches that white people are bad forever. And there's nothing that we can do, to make up for the original sin of having descended from people with skin color at this shade now, and where it just seems like we are actually trying to create this reverse racism that was always a joke, that's when people go, ugh. And so I think it's the same thing with gender. We can talk about gender and sex and all the ways of the things that we've learned, the things that have happened historically, female oppression, what we can talk about how rigid we used to be about gender and that we can now all open up. Most people can agree about opening up gender expression and gender roles, but we don't need to talk about the critical, gender study thing that has been made up by some professors and now has been filtered down to the masses, in this. Yeah.
To me, it seems like, and I always try, being a comic, you try to stay, relevant. You try to, stay hand on the pulse, whatever. But I swear, 1 minute, it was like, okay, can, homosexuals get married? Can gays get married? This and that. And then I knew gays, lesbians, bisexual. And I swear, I don't know where it was. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And this whole world opened. I was like, what? And I was like, what is non-binary? What is binary? What is polyamorous? What is this? What is cisgender? I mean, I knew about transgender, but I was like, what the hell? And I was like so confused. I see all these terms. Like I met these swingers like a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about all these different flags represent what you're into. Like, are you into like anybody? And I thought, isn't that bisexual? But
stuff. Yeah.
And I was just
there's the hanky code for flags but that's like specific sexual things that you're into, whether you want to get hit or you want to hit people, whether you want to get peed on or you want to pee on people, there's all that kind of stuff. There's also flags for every kind of identity now.
Those are kinks. I look at those as kinks, and I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, those are kinks.
If we do, man, it'd be a whole different podcast. So, but I mean, but you consider yourself, you call yourself polyamorous, all right? And which means.
Polyamorous means that you are capable of loving more than one person at a time is the simplest way to put it. Now, most people would, I think, agree that they can love more than one person at a time, but many people are not open to having a sexual relationship with more than one person at a time. I mean, unless they're just single and dating, and then they can fuck multiple people. So it's very strange to me that it's foreign to a lot of people. But the idea that you might want to have at the same time more than one romantic partner, everyone was kind of raised in the script of monogamy. And so it's what people default to. But to me, I'm like, doesn't it kind of seem obvious that you could have more than one person that you are partners with in life? You work together, whether you merge your finances or you live together or not. There's so many different ways to do this. You might have one in New York and one in Austin and one in LA and one in Chicago and whatever. And it could be various amounts, but of how much you're connected, how much your partners, whether you live together in various combinations, whether you have sex with each other all together or in different combos or whatever. But it's just an openness. For me, it's just that I can have more than one romantic partner at a time.
Oh, wow. Okay. And now what's binary and non-binary?
Okay. Well, the binary is just, when it comes to gender, which is how people are meaning that, is the idea that there are men and there are women. And for some people, they would also talk about the male and female binary, but I'm going to stick to just gender and not sex for this. Oh, okay. The binary is the idea that there's just men, there's women. So if you're non-binary, the idea is that you are not man or not woman. You might be both. You might be neither. You might be something outside of that. You might go back and forth between both, neither, a little this, a little that. But that's and most people, when they say non-binary, mean different things by it.
Now, have you ever been attracted to a man? Romantic, like 6 months far. Man, how about crush? How about that? A crush. Like you saw a guy and maybe you work with him and you're like, wow, he's attractive. I'm kind of, like kind of attracted to him in a way, but you knew it wouldn't go past that.
So my attraction to men, yeah, I mean, I can find some men physically attractive, certainly. And it's usually, I mean, they have to be so hot. I mean, the men I'm attracted to are like
who?
Beyond hot. I'm like Fight Club, Brad Pitt, and a minimum, okay?
Everybody likes Fight Club, Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, that guy, but only as that character, not I've seen Aquaman. I don't care about that. Do you know what I mean? It's very particular. There's a certain kind of pecs, whatever, and there's a certain amount of like, are you attracted to that? Or do you want to look like that? That can be fuzzy anyway, but I can find some men physically attractive. And I can use men in sexual fantasies.
Really?
I mean, I really like man on man. So, oh yeah, but usually y'all are fucking each other in my fantasies. So don't get excited.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like Brad Pitt, Brad Pitt and Ronaldo, the soccer player together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it's the best. Yeah, I love, it's straight men only. I don't care for gay men fucking. I only want the men to be straight. So
why is that?
Military hierarchy stuff. Oh, because y'all don't want it so badly. It's like there's something, because I like really like things that are wrong. I think growing up a gay Mormon and stuff, and I was masturbating at such a young age and like just had all these fantasies, and like sexuality was so wrong to me. It was right. Like every time I would masturbate, it was like this whole thing where I'm like, God's up, sad and whatever would rush through my body. And so I think that my sexuality got really tied to wrongness. And so then once you're not that kind of religious anymore, you got to find new ways for things to be wrong. And anyway, but I like the aggression that's possible between two men, and it can bum me out if a woman is getting like hurt or abused or used, right, or whatever. Yeah. But when two men are doing it, like, fuck y'all, you deserve it,
So what age did you start masturbating? What age?
2 to orgasm.
2?
I was 2 or 3. Yeah. Like as a toddler. Because I was like reading, getting books from the library when I was only 3, I could only get 2 books from my dad's card. And I would always get this audiobook of Curious George Goes to the Hospital, like on tape. And like, I got that and a new book every time, but I got that because that was my favorite book to masturbate about. Because he ate a puzzle piece and then he had to go to the doctor and the doctor put him under, and I had a whole thing for doctors for a long time. So,
I know what you're going for is Halloween. Is your Halloween outfit like a doctor outfit?
Oh, I'm the patient in my fantasies. So, Dr. Bottom. But yeah, I mean, so my sexuality is so like for men, it's a good question you ask about having a crush on a man though, because that's like a distinction, because right. I always had crushes on women. I have never had a crush on a man like that. I've never had like feelings for a man. And so that's why if I try to imagine like actually having sex with a man, it just kind of seems weird. And like, if I'm ovulating and I'm drunk and it's from behind and the guy's so like, there's something kind of hot, but it feels more like man on man to me if I was thinking of being with a man. The idea of like making love to a man is so ridiculous to me. I don't see all that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I don't like, I there probably could be some men who were like really like kind of pretty and androgynous and smooth. Like there probably are some men in the world who could at least begin to seduce me in that way.
Like who?
You know what I mean?
How about 1986 Prince?
I've never, maybe I have to see the right pictures. People compare me to Prince sometime, whatever, but I just never, I have to see. I think there were weird hairstyles at the time, and that kind of ruined him for me. Everyone else seemed to be so into him, but I don't know. Like David Bowie, all the guys that people hold up as these androgynous hotties. That doesn't tend to be. There's Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like. I'd never really like seen Johnny Depp before that. And I was maybe a senior in high school or something when that movie came out. I remember going to the theater, and I remember Orlando Bloom was cute too, but I was more into him as Legolas in Game of Thrones, that long hair, pretty boy thing going on. But I was just like mesmerized by, what's his name? Johnny Depp with the eyeliner. I think it was the eyeliner that got me. And he was just had these effeminate, there was something about that. But again, it's like, it's hard I can't really imagine like, actually having sex. I'm not sure what that would even look like if I tried to have sex with one of these. I think we would just be so gender confused together. I'm like, I'm really into like boobs, like right. I like hips and eyes and boobs. And I just don't like to be sexually excited. Yeah. It's just not. Yeah.
Well, not to get you in trouble with your current person, but like, let's say, who's your like fantasy crush woman wise?
It would never get me in trouble. Again, we're polyamorous.
Okay, well, you never know.
There's
you never know.
Getting in trouble.
But that's my old school thinking. That's why I had you on. That's my old school thinking. So, like, you had to pick your like, say, fantasy crush for like a celebrity or a sports star or whatever. Who would it be?
I think Scarlett Johansson is probably like, I really into Scarlett Johansson for a while back in the day, and like Natalie Portman. Yes. Angelina Jolie back in the day, dude. I mean, yeah. But you see, it's women who were beautiful. Well, I love long, dark, curly hair. That's my favorite. So, like, what was it? Like Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman or something in that Black Swan movie. It was something that was a good, I don't know. I don't really think that much about celebrities but there was a weird Instagram account of hot, Scarlett Johansson pictures that followed me yesterday. So I was like, oh, I didn't know she had boobs like that. So that's why I brought her up. I'm like, oh, okay.
I fucking love it. God damn it, man. You know what? We're talking. I looked up and god damn it, my time is up. Jesus, I didn't even get to half the stuff I wanted to just because I
told you that was what was going to happen.
But you know what? No, but I loved it though, because I was getting educated and I didn't want to stop and interrupt you because I was like listening. You know what I mean? I didn't want to keep interrupting. I hate that when I'm listening to a podcast, whatever, and somebody has a good story, they're talking, when they get interrupted, I hate that shit. So I wanted to have you talking. That's why I wanted to talk to you about. But I think a part 2 may be coming up. I don't know when, but I would love a part 2 if you're
prepare specific questions for part 2, because I will take you on a tangent train to nowhere.
I like listening. No, I love listening. I really do. Man, I hope we get to work together sometime. I really do.
Sure. Are you in Atlanta? Did I make that up?
No, yeah, you made that up. Probably because I'm black. I live in Indianapolis.
Baltimore.
Indianapolis.
Oh, okay, I don't think you told me where.
You're naming all the black cities. Baltimore. The streets of Atlanta.
I'm from a black city, so.
I know you are, but yeah.
I'm from a very diverse city is where I'm from.
Houston.
Oh yeah. I grew up in Alief, which is I looked at it, it was the most diverse county in the world or in the country or however they put it. Especially when I was growing up. I mean, I grew up, it was Martin Luther King's dream. We were all poor together. There was no correlation between socioeconomic status and race. So I thought that's just how the world was until we moved when I was 13. We moved a little outside Houston and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Things haven't progressed as far as I was living. But yeah, we were all in it together when I was little. Yeah.
You think that shaped you as a person to be more well-rounded?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just like, there's so many of my like good little liberal friends who, have all the right politics in their mind, but they don't have any black friends. They're uncomfortable. They've gentrified them out of their neighborhoods, whatever. And I'm like, well, you have all these woke politics, but you grew up, you never knew any black people. And so it's like, yeah, of course you shouldn't weigh in on these things or whatever, but like,
yeah,
I grew up, we were getting beat up by gangs too. We were like, everybody was friends with everybody. Everybody called everybody everything. It was just like this kind of post-racial world until I was 13. And then we moved further outside the city. And then there was all of a sudden, I remember there was a guy in my drum line who had like a Confederate flag and we used the N-word. And I was like, oh, it felt like going into a history book, because it just was with a different spirit. Yeah.
Wow. God damn it. Ariel,
but I still feel more at home in Houston than anywhere else. I mean, like when I go do comedy and talk to those audiences, there's just something that's very like,
organic.
They're just comfortable with that kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know what? We're gonna get to that in a part 2. I don't know when, but I hope you do me the pleasure of having a part 2. Honestly, because I started following you before I even hit you up. I think I followed you like a month. I don't know how I found you, but I did, and I was like, oh my god! I saw the picture. I was like, yeah, and I started following you, and I saw the podcast, which we're going to plug, by the way. Plug your 2 podcasts before we get out of here. Oh man, she freeze up. Oh, there you go. Okay, could you plug your two podcasts before we get out of here?
I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yes.
you just froze completely.
Okay.
Oh, I think you're back. Sorry, I don't know. I don't know what you just said, but
No, I said
it's good we made it this far.
Yeah, your two podcasts you have are the Gender Fluid podcast and your
Gender fluids. That's a very important distinction. Gender fluids.
Gender Fluids podcast, the Gender Fluids podcast,
It's a double entendre.
And the political
Politically non-binary. Politically non-binary.
Follow that, and also she's the host of the Off Script Comedy in Austin, once a month or twice a month.
Twice a month. There's once a month in Austin and once a month in San Marcos.
Okay, follow her at Ellen Degenderless. Arielle Isaac Norman, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I hope to talk to you again sometime. I had a great time. I hope you did too.
Yeah, sure. The pleasure is mine. I'd love to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching Tales from a Gemini. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, hit me up on the DM. Follow her at Ellen Degenderless. And you know how I say about this time, you know the word peace.